just sit here. That's fine. Good Brett.
Let me know when you're ready.
Thank you. I'm ready, sir.
Thank you, everyone, for staying so late this evening. I know we're running a little bit behind schedule. Lots of great questions today. This is the budget hearing for the Metro Human Relations Commission. Councilmember Brett Withers, I'm the vice chair of the Personnel Committee, and we get to work with these wonderful folks. And I look forward to hearing the presentation from Director Melody Fowler-Green about what your department does and what your request would be. So I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm Mel Fowler-Green, the Director of the Metro Human Relations Commission, and I'm happy to have with me today three of my commissioners, our current chair, Frank True, one of my vice chairs, Phyllis Hildreth, and one of our newest commissioners, Marissa Richmond. And I want to thank you, yes, thank you all who are hanging in here and giving us an opportunity to talk about the work that we've done in this past year and what we have on tap for next year. This past year, we issued a Metro-wide language access study and report. That was a study and report that took just about a year. We engaged departments on what their current language access plans are, engaged constituents on what their experiences were in accessing Metro services if they are linguistic minorities, and we did some focus groups. As a result of that study, we are now spearheading the creation of a model language access plan along with the mayor's office and the ADA coordinator for general services. And that plan's intended to ensure better access for all constituents who are what we consider linguistic minorities. We see that as including limited English proficient constituents as well as the deaf and hard of hearing community. And we're going to be able in the next year and a half provide technical assistance to departments who are facing some struggles in providing the best access to constituents who do not speak English. We are also going to do some joint trainings with the ADA coordinator for all Metro departments to comply both with ADA and with Title VI. This last fiscal year, the last full fiscal year, we sponsored, led, or worked directly on 51 programs and events engaging just under 125,000 constituents. So far this fiscal year, we've sponsored or led or worked directly on over 60 programs, events, and trainings engaging over 200,000 constituents. That includes substantive trainings like our mobile diversity seminars. We do Title VI training and compliance reviews, and we have done a number of diversity and cultural competence trainings with both community partners and with other Metro departments. We've also done some large events, some that we do annually, Celebrate Nashville, the Music City Iftar. We co-sponsor the Pride event, the Human Rights Day celebration, Stand Against Racism, Nashville's MLK Day March and Convocation, World Refugee Day, and the annual Fair Housing Conference. We have operational, like real operational partnerships with over 40 organizations and agencies. They do go far beyond just sponsorships. We do these trainings, programming, projects with dozens of agencies, both within Metro and within our local community. So this coming year, we want to continue our successful program and events, but what we really need to do is we need to dig deeper on the significant human relations conflicts that Nashville and Davidson County are facing. As this body knows, we are facing challenging times. We have conflicts related to racial disparities in criminal justice. We have conflicts related in neighborhoods to gentrification and displacement. We have increased political polarization, increased economic disparities, and these things create conflict. To effectively address these issues pursuant to our mandate, we have committed to adding additional services and programs and to engage in new efforts to conciliate conflict. First, given the current political climate and having heard a number of stories and concerns from our local partners, we have looked for new and creative ways to address the potential of increased incidents of hate and bias. A few months ago, our office convened a diverse group of organizations to form a coalition called Respect Nashville to document, track, and respond to bias-related incidents in Davidson County. Going forward, we're going to continue to provide technical support to that coalition. It is, in essence, a private, the private organizations, nonprofits, who we hope will continue to drive it with our assistance and technical support. But we would also like to build educational resources with that coalition. And like much of the work that we do, that requires human capital. Second, the metro workforce itself is not immune to the racial, political, and social conflicts that we as a nation are facing. Our office receives more requests for trainings, conflict management, and conciliation assistance from metro departments than we can currently provide. We are now developing curriculum and tools for a few departments and are partnering with human resources to explore better ways to support department leaders who face conflict in their workforce. But to deliver those services and to make them more broadly available to other metro departments, that too requires human capital. The Commission is also concerned about the fact that enforcement agencies on both the federal and state level are very likely to experience a decrease in their own funding sources and their own resources. So it's important that we ensure that Davidson County residents have viable avenues to address and remediate discrimination and perceived discrimination. Providing individual hearings or conciliation services, which is more often what we are doing. That takes, again, human capital. Finally, for the more systemic issues, you will, I'm sure, recall just a couple months ago, constituents were in these chambers demanding better mechanisms to be heard, to address what they view as racial disparities in policing and the criminal justice system. The Human Relations Commission is responding to those demands in a few ways. One, we have started work with a senior conciliator at the Department of Justice's Community Relations Service to assist us in finding a path forward on conciliation if possible, and greater community engagement around the racial disparities. We're also now amending our rules and procedures to allow the community greater opportunities to address not just individual claims of discrimination, but systemic instances of inequality and seemingly neutral policies that in fact have disparate impacts. And the process that we intend to create by those new rules will be available to address any form of discrimination that is within our mandate. And I think you know what I'm going to say. To provide these new opportunities and these new processes, it requires human capital. Both the commissioners and I believe that our staff is well prepared to be leaders in addressing the city's current human relations conflicts if we have sufficient resources and support. Our budget proposal this year included two requests, a $6,000 operational increase to support our biannual mobile diversity seminar that we offer to the police academy. We're very thankful that that request is currently reflected in the mayor's proposed budget. We also sought the addition of one full-time employee that is not currently in the proposed budget. We will, of course, continue to provide high-quality services through the commission and through my office. We will, of course, be challenged to meet the city's current needs with our current staff. But I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councilmember Shulman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Director.
Yes.
We're glad you all are here. 51 programs this past year, 40 organizations that you're working with. It doesn't sound like you all are doing very much. Sounds like you're very, very busy. And I also agree with the statement that I think you're going to probably be even busier this year
Yes.
with the way things seem to be going around this country. It sounds like more local entities are going to have to step up. So let me go back to something that I was confused on. I looked at this very carefully. Last year, I thought that you had asked for half a position, half a person to do some administrative work, because I think you were really, at that point, you were very much behind and you're having to do a lot of the administrative stuff yourself. Did you ask for half a person?
We actually did ask for a full FTE, and it was envisioned to be an administrative position. I will say that with the events over the last year, we had some significant discussion in the office about what is really necessary. We did not get an additional person or a half FTE last year.
Okay. I think what I was trying to remember is I think there may be several of us that actually put in for, I hate saying that, half a person, but it was half a position. It was at least to get somebody else in there to help you.
Yes.
Okay, so wish list was for half a person. I remember that part, and I think some of us probably requested that. It sounds like that's an item that we're going to have to put on the wish list. It sounds like you've got a lot of stuff going on. You've only got 4 people. I think we're going to have to, I think some of us will probably put a position on there and put that on the wish list, because I don't know how you all are doing what you're doing right now. So more power to you. Keep going, and I think you'll see some wish lists pop up with that extra position on there.
Well, thank you. And for complete transparency and clarity, we, in our request, asked for not necessarily an administrative person, but a program manager, someone who could pull together a number of our disparate compliance programs and could manage our compliance programs. And what I mean by that is Title VI, training and compliance, which does include language access. Also a person who would be sort of on point for the Respect Nashville Coalition, right, as they receive complaints of incidents of hate and bias. And a person who would take the direct calls from constituents to receive direct complaints.
Okay, so this is important for the chairman. So it's another program manager position. Is that what it's called?
Correct.
Okay.
A program specialist, I'm sorry.
Program specialist. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think I've got it. And part of Nashville being a warm, opening, friendly city with lots of diverse people that live here, I think you probably need the help. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Shulman. Next should be Councilmember Steve Glover.
Thank you, Chair. So here's the challenge I think we face sitting out here. We are barely through a couple of days of this, and we've already heard, I think we may be in the neighborhood of $2 or $3 million worth of needs from various departments that are not in the budget now.
Correct.
As we look at the city who continues to grow, as we look at the emergency services that are needed, the lack of police personnel and everything else, while I appreciate what you're saying, I think we're faced with a hard challenge of where do we put the resources that we have, and what do we do. I think philosophically, and I know some people in the room here are going to disagree with me, philosophically, I think that we are a great city. You know, I happen to like some of the ways that where we're going, and so, you know, for me, it's going to be a challenge to be able to say, okay, let's spend another, because what would the position cost? What would be the all-in cost for the FTE?
63,100.
Okay. And so from my standpoint, I just think it's going to be a challenge to be able to justify that, because I think we're going to fall short in some of the meetings we're about to have when you guys leave on some personnel, because I'll tell you, the calls that I don't like getting is when the grass is too high or and we don't have the personnel to deal with those things. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I think it's going to be a challenge.
And I appreciate that. Thank you. I would add that our department did have 5 employees for a very long time. And in 2009, following the recession, our department went from 5 employees to 4 employees. And we have, since 2009, had an increase in population, and we have had a very acute increase in real human relations conflicts that the city's facing. We've also had an increase in the number of constituents who, do not speak English, they're from other places. We've also had some serious conflict related to gentrification. We're working with the Neighborhoods Resource Center on remedying or at least trying to conciliate some of those conflicts.
Yeah,
and I would also, go ahead.
No, you.
Well, I would also say that a number of things that we do are, in fact, cost-saving. For language access, for instance, I attended a meeting at Bridges along with a number of other departments. Bridges serves the deaf and hard of hearing community. After a gentleman was arrested in our city, went through an entire process, days detained, and had never received an interpreter. Our constituents have needs, and we are very siloed in the way that we approach these issues. So by spearheading a language access study and report, we have been able to sort of uncover where we're falling short and can provide technical assistance to every metro department. And so our compliance efforts, for the most part, can in fact result in significant savings for the city.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you don't. It's just Public Works has less people than they did in '09. The school system has, in certain areas have less. So I get that piece of it. I just think the challenge is for us to try and prioritize and determine, with the limited resources that we may end up with and what we do out of this committee and this council, how do we allocate? I mean, I wish we had enough money to do everything, but we don't. Thank you, Chair.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. The next speaker should be Councilmember Angie Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Withers. Director Fowler Green, thanks so much. I appreciated receiving your report earlier this year about the work that you did with the police department, your biannual mobile diversity training and work around implicit bias and so forth. And I wondered, I see additional funding for that program, which I think is great. Can you speak to how you partner with MNPD? Do they have internal to MNPD a person who specifically addresses that and facilitates that program? So you all are doing programming and lining up the speakers and then giving kind of the framework, or can you just speak to what y'all's role is versus the role of the police department?
Absolutely. We work directly with the training academy, with both the captain and the lieutenant who are in charge of training, Captain Stevens and Lieutenant Carroll. And what we did initially was meet with them, talk about what sort of, what goals they had in mind, and we developed the curricula. We developed, what would we want to propose to sort of reach some of their goals. And we also brought to them some new ideas, have you thought of including this or that? So The police academy pays, so MMPD pays for the chartered bus, the bus that picks up the cadets at the academy first thing in the morning. And we do all of the management of the participants. We go to 4 different locations in the city. We address issues related to anywhere from 4 to 6 different communities. We manage somewhere near 80 community volunteers throughout the day who range from panelists to experts to just community members who have agreed to come have lunch with the cadets. Part of the day includes a guided lunch, and we pay for that lunch as well, and breakfast.
In addition to formulating the curriculum, which is potentially replicable but evolving when you get your feedback, you're also managing all those speakers, people who want to have lunch, all that, and you're doing that twice a year.
We are, and
through the Teenage Academy.
Yes, that's correct. We also are developing what we call a resource guide. So, each time we do it, it's getting better. But the goal is that will be, something that every cadet can take away, where they can record not only their thoughts about, each location and what they've learned, but, names of everybody that they've met, how to get in touch with, so we're hoping that the relationship that they might start on that day could be continued in the future.
And can you explain the work that you do or how you interface with Metro's human resources department, so HR department? So we heard from the Beer Board, they're looking to be intentional around hiring their next inspector to be bilingual. And I know you all do a very good job of coming to departments and doing, trainings around bias and discrimination and so forth. What are you all doing, or what is appropriate to do from a proactive standpoint with HR around, just kind of coaching for interviewing and questioning and kind of just, having conversations with people where you might become aware that they might have certain biases that you might not want to have an employee? I guess what I'm saying, from a proactive standpoint, how are you working with our HR department and to those folks internal to departments who are charged with hiring to not just, check the box, you have the skill set, take this position, but having conversations with folks that you kind of attempt to ascertain, are they a part of the team that, supports diversity and will be a good person to have in the office? I guess just some coaching around that, or is that something that you all do? Because I see that as an important kind of proactive piece as Metro looks to hire folks who support our welcoming and diverse community. So I don't know if you could speak to that as how you interface with HR, if appropriate.
Great, I think I can. There are two different things going on, I think. So, we have Metro HR, and we're working with them currently in sort of talking through and developing some support system that we can provide to department leaders who may be facing issues of bias, discrimination, or some other conflict within their workforce. Because very frankly, it can be a little lonely in our individual departments. And so trying to really figure out how to work through that conflict and provide people with tools. That's one thing. I serve on the mayor's diversity advisory committee. And I'm sure every person who serves on the committee will say the same thing, but I take that role seriously. thinking with a consultant and working with our chief diversity officer on best practices and the mayor's strategic plan around diversity. We provide cultural competence training or implicit bias training, conflict management training for departments who ask for it. But we would like to be able to offer that more broadly.
Okay, understood. And I appreciate the training that you do, but I guess and we can talk afterwards, but I guess I'm just sort of thinking about, there's the training after the fact, which is important, but I just wonder in our hiring practice, not kind of coaching people or helping them to have those conversations that help them understand if that person will be supportive of diversity on their team and a good member of their team. Last question, if I may, around making sure that our police force more accurately reflects our community. Is that an initiative that, in the same way you're doing the mobile diversity training, is that an initiative you're working on with our police department so that those officers that are out in the community reflect the communities they serve?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I think that, excuse me, we see the Mobile Diversity Seminar not as a one-way street, right? We're engaging 80, maybe 90 volunteers from different communities to have direct contact and a real substantive connection with cadets, right, through the program. So it's not just the police, those who are attending the police academy who are learning something throughout the day. We also hope that these community members can then sort of bridge the trust that they might, or distrust that they might have of law enforcement. And we really pick leaders from these communities who can then also take that back to their own communities, right? To say, we have a police force who really are trying to be welcoming. And so we also follow up with all of the leaders that we work with on the Mobile Diversity Seminar to strongly encourage them and their communities to apply for positions.
Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. Our next speaker is Councilmember Karen Johnson. Are you ready?
Thank you, Chair Withers. I apologize. Director Fowler Green, thank you for all of the work that you do in your office. And my question is around the $6,000 that you have in your budget request for, and I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of Council Lady Henderson. She asked somewhat the question that I was going to ask about the training partnership with MMPD. Mm-hmm. My specific questions around when we had the meeting with the community group, with the Driving While Black, we asked a lot of questions about the diversity training because of implicit bias and issues that were raised by those groups. And so we were told that they already do an extensive training, diversity training for the police department. Are you aware of that training? Has anybody from your department sat in on that training so that what you're planning to do here doesn't duplicate anything or maybe captures something that is not covered in that training?
Yes, I think I can speak directly to that. I have recently reviewed the full curriculum for the police academy and am working with them on ensuring that we are not duplicating, but that we might also be able to provide some advice on what holes there might be. And what I know is there is a diversity training done by HR, which is the standard new employee HR training. They also do an implicit bias training. They do internally. There was an outfit that they had come do a train the trainer, somebody who is, as far as I understand, nationally recognized in the field to come do train the trainer stuff so that MNPD could do the implicit bias training for all of their officers, not just the new cadets. I have had the opportunity to attend some of that implicit bias training. And we are right now working with HR to review what the 3-hour mandatory training that they do, which includes sexual harassment. And other than our full day, that's all I am aware of.
Okay, well, being an HR professional, some training that's out there is just going through the motions. And being able to gain something from the training, I think, is very important given the recent discussions we've had with various community groups who have concerns. And so are your efforts to roll this out been also inclusive of feedback from those groups, like Gideon's Army and the others that came up here during those hearings?
Yes, before we even engaged in building the curriculum, we met with a number of community groups. We've also invited nearly every organization we can think of to participate if they want to participate. And those who are willing to participate, we also do a follow-up survey of every community member who participates in our mobile diversity seminar. We believe that it's important to really assess our programming. I believe that it was mentioned before, the report that we put out, the post-analysis, we include the community members who have participated to get their feedback. And yes, we encourage the community organizations who are concerned about the conflict to engage. But I will also say that in our recent engagement with a conciliation expert or specialist from the DOJ's Community Relations Service, we intend to really try very hard to bring those organizations to the table for a separate matter than just the mobile diversity seminar, right? That's just about the new cadets, but we really want to engage these community organizations in a deeper way on the systemic issues that they're facing.
Well, I think you're maximizing your outcome and deliverables given the limited amount of resources and staff that you all have. I know you have your commission members who volunteer their time, and you do an incredible amount of work to ensure fairness and equity with our city with that limited amount of staff and resources. So I commend you. I think it's money well spent because we want our city to be one that is welcoming, as our mayor has emphasized. And I think the commitment of us as a council, funding those things that help us to move the needle towards acceptance of others and being more welcoming is well worth it. So I support your budget and your budget requests. And again, thank you for all of the work that you do.
Thank you, Council Lady.
Thank you, Councilmember Karen Johnson. Councilmember Coleman, did you still wish to be recognized?
Well, Well, it is not for comment. It is only a comment that I'll part with, and that is I want to say that this board is very important, and we won't feel it until something happened in our city, like on February 21st. Then we begin to look around to see what do we have in place. So even though I understand what Councilman Glover talked about when he said 63,000 is a lot of money when we have the various agencies coming before us, but the fact of the matter is that we can't wait. We can't have a plan after the fact. We have to be in there. I know you guys cooperate with NORA, IMS, several groups out there, and that's very important that we have this network because we don't pay NORA. We don't give them a part of our budget. We don't give IMF a part of our budget. We don't pay some of the other organizations, but we have somebody that can call people together, like the mayor called the commission together to study the body cam. You provide that kind of source. So even though to most people listening, they'll say to me when I see them at the store tomorrow, Coleman, are you crazy, 63,000? But they don't know, or they may not understand the impact of having a commission like yours in place, so when things happen, we can discern them, work on the bottom level before things escalate, and need I not remind everybody of Ferguson and some other cities that didn't have a listening ear. So I think that, yes, 63,000 is a lot, but on the other hand, when we're sued and our city is set on fire because we're not listening, then 63,000 is not very much at all. So I'm not going to require comment. I just want to say that money is one thing, but the intangibles that you provide is even greater. So continue to do the good work that you're doing. I would implore you, like everybody else, to add diversity. Obviously, we can stand to have a Latino kind of person on the board so our city can, so your board can reflect how our city look. And I know you're getting there, and I know you have to abide by civil service rules and all of that. But I just want to end by saying, yeah, money is one thing, but the intangible of being fair is far more greater. And I think that's your mission, and I think you're well on your way to accomplishing it. And I just want to close by saying, good job.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I do have one thing to add, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We do, in fact, we do have a Latina who serves on our commission, and the commissioners are appointed by the mayor. So I will be sure to let the mayor know that we could have an increase. Two. Oh, Janice, I'm sorry. We have 2 Latinas. We also, I should add, I'm very proud of this. In my small staff, I employ a really fabulous social scientist. Her name is Samantha Perez. Samantha is on track to be the first Latina to receive a PhD in sociology from Vanderbilt. She's all but dissertation at the moment. She's an incredible addition to our staff. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that question and for your response. Our next speaker is Councilmember Nancy Van Rees. You are recognized.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all you do every day. I wanted to specifically talk a little bit about the work with the LGBT Chamber on the self-identification program. I learned a little bit more about it through our work on the Diversity Council. I think that that it's extremely important, and I don't know that a lot of folks, if you're not involved in that program, might not be aware of it. So I wanted to give you a chance to speak on that because I think it's a very valuable part of the investment. Talking about investment, Nashville will be known for how we treat each other and how we resolve our conflicts. And what you do is create our brand every day. So I appreciate that. If you could speak on the self-identification program, that'd be great.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you. Yes, last year we worked with the LGBT Chamber Nashville on a policy recommendation. I had served also on a panel for the LGBT Chamber about the value of what we call voluntary self-identification. And what we mean by that is, for the most part, right, we value what we count, right? So if you don't count it, in many circumstances, it's not meaningful, and you can't engage it in policy. So there is a large movement among larger companies in the U.S. On allowing employees to self-identify with regard to gender identity and sexual orientation. The federal government requires reporting for EEO purposes, and for Metro, we have data regarding a number of diversity issues and identifying for employees. And for instance, when we did the Inclusivics report, right, we were able to analyze the demographics of our workforce based on the data that we had. What we don't have is really any idea of how many of our employees identify as lesbian, gay, transgender, bi, and what we don't know then is how do they feel included in their workforce? How do they feel included? Are they facing issues of exclusion in their workplace? So one remedy for that is to allow an opportunity for anonymous self-identification. Our recommendation was based on research that we did on best practices, and that would be done through an anonymous employee satisfaction survey. And that's in fact what the federal government does now. The federal government does a semi-annual survey of its workforce that includes the opportunity for employees to self-identify. And so we've made that recommendation to Metro. We took it to the Diversity Advisory Committee. But another reason that we did the policy paper with the Chamber was not only to make the suggestion for Metro, but also to assist in the conversation more broadly. And I'm very excited to say that the policy work that we did with the LGBT Chamber has moved the needle. I got a call early after releasing it from Vanderbilt Medical, who had, their HR staff had read the paper and called to ask if I could help connect them with any other companies locally that were doing it. And just a few weeks ago, Vanderbilt Medical announced that they are now engaging their employees in that kind of survey.
Any further questions, Councilmember Van Rees?
No, thank you very much. I would like to take this opportunity to self-identify.
Check. I'll check the box for you.
Thank you. Director Fowler-Green, are there any comments before we close from any of your commission members?
I would certainly be happy to give them the floor. No. Okay, I will not. You got,
All right.
Sorry.
All right, with that, just wanted to thank Director Fowler-Green for all of your work, in particular working with the Diversity Advisory Committee with Metro and looking at hiring diversity and all those things that we're trying to make Metro government model the type of society that we are and the type of society that we hope to become in our city. And thank you all so much for your tireless work.
Thank you, Chairman.